Welcome, everybody, to part 35 of Dale's Tale, the remake. I literally am surprised that I'm calling it that every episode now, but it literally rhymes, it's funny, and it works. But anyways, last time we got into a lot. Dale's eye, Carol's unfortunate demise, Pete being left to die in his own house, supposedly, and the entrance into Season 6 with Deanna wanting Rick to lead Alexandria. And that's where we resume the story. But before that, you guys should definitely hit that subscribe button because this channel has gotten a whole lot more epic, and you guys definitely are not going to want to miss out on the stuff that I've already posted and future stuff that is to come for the channel. With that said, let's get into today's episode. Now, with survivors, we have Dale, Eastman, Tyrese, Mika, Megan, and Beth. Those are all the survivors that we got. And for Carl, Carol, Michonne, and Abraham, that's the big twist, because all of them are dead. Being very important characters and such, they are all dead, and that puts us at tough spots with those character roles, but still allowing us to move forward with the story. Now, we also got Rosita and Ron, who Ron is now going to hate Rosita in this story because she's the one who killed Pete, but he was left to die in his house, and he's very, 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 very injured, so no one knows if he eventually is going to die or if he's like somehow gonna survive. Now, the next step we gotta get into is relationships and who's with who. Now, first two, Rick and Jesse, because Michonne ain't around here, and around this time, Rick and Jesse were getting closer, so no Michonne, it's Rick and Jesse. Spencer and Rosita are obviously a couple from the last episode, and the one before that. And since Abraham is dead, that means that we ain't gonna get Sasha and Abraham being a couple in this story. That means that Sasha's gonna pretty much be with nobody, and she's just gonna not be with Tyrese, obviously, because they're siblings, but they're just going to be, she's gonna stick around with him, basically. You guys get what I'm saying? Ron and Enid are also still a couple because of no Carl, but Enid being who she is, and Ron being who he is, wanting to get revenge and everything against the likes of Rosita, that relationship's not really gonna go anywhere. It didn't before, it won't now. So, yeah. But Ron's gonna focus all of his attention on finding a way to kill Rosita, while Enid just pretty much runs off and is stupid. You know? That whole deal. But with that said, now we get into other relationships. Tara and Denise, because around that time they were starting to get into a relationship, so they obviously would here. Now, with all that out of the way, now we gotta talk about something that's really big and a really big problem, and that results in the leadership rule and everything else. Because I've done this before, and with Rick being the leader later than he was, sort of, that means, and since he became a leader in a much different way, they ain't gonna go out to the quarry horde and take care of it like they did. Because the way Rick has acted in this story, and the way that he was brought into leadership with Alexandria, that means that no one's gonna go out and get the horde taken care of like they did. which is going to have big ramifications later on. But before that, we need to touch upon something else that's really important. Dwight, Sherry, and Tina. Because if no one goes out to get them, that means that they're just going to be out on their own. And also, that means two things that's going to be very important for the rest of the story. For one thing, Tina's alive. And for another, Negan captures them. Without any Daryl or anybody to go out to the woods and find them and talk to them and do all that, that means that Negan is just going to capture them like way easier and have a bigger stronghold on them. But that's not the big part. Oh no. And it's not only just because Tina's alive. No. That means that since Negan captured them almost effortlessly with no help from Daryl or anybody else, that means that Negan is going to kill someone whose death was teased when Negan talked to Daryl in Season 7. Dwight. With no Daryl and no one else to meet, Dwight, he would put himself in the position to get Lucille'd by Negan. Because, and that also means with Tina alive and no one else, and it would just come down to this happening because it was teased in the original show, and Dwight would die here. And Sherry and Tina, they wouldn't know what to do. But Negan would tell them he gave them warnings and this had to happen. And Sherry looks like she's about to literally pounce on Negan and kill him for the death of Dwight. But at that moment, Tina makes the ultimate decision to save them both. She agrees that her and Sherry will become Negan's wives if they get to live. Dwight, oh, they can't bargain with him now. They tried that. But now, it's the best thing that they can do. And Sherry's looking over at Tina like, dude, are you serious right now? This guy just butchered and beat Dwight to death. And you're just gonna go along with him? But they don't really have another choice. And it's either they do this or they end up dead. Literally. So, this is literally the best course of action that they can take to survive. And with that, very, 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 very reluctantly, Sherry and Tina become Negan's wives in a much different way, and Dwight is dead. So, yeah. But that's enough of the saviors for quite a while. Meanwhile at Alexandria, Eastman teaches the likes of Morgan, who already pretty much knew Aikido, and Aaron Aikido. And when the wolves eventually do invade, Dale, Tyrese, Spencer, Sasha, and Rosita are all there on guard duty, or watch duty, whatever the frick you want to call it, and they manage to stop the truck before it rams into the tower. So the wolves are still going to invade, but they're not going to get as big of an advantage. The truck this time wasn't as much of a distraction because it was stopped easier and it didn't ram into the tower, which means the clock tower is not going to fall over. So the wolves don't have as big of an advantage here, and only Carter dies. But let's be honest, nobody cared about him anyway, so really, this is a blessing for his character. He died around this time anyway, it's just in a different way. So who really cares? And unfortunately, with no Carl, no Glenn, no Nicholas, no one at all to stop her or get her back, Enid is going to stay out in the woods all by herself and be all on her own. So when that quarry herd comes and breaks from the quarry because, like I just mentioned earlier, that means that Enid's going to get devoured alive. And yeah, unfortunately, yeah, without any Carl or anybody, Enid would literally die here without anybody to rescue her. So, sad for her, but it's what was gonna happen. Morgan and Aaron also encounter the second in command of the wolves and the rest of them and tell them that they should go, except it'd be in a much different way because of everything the characters had been through. And they wouldn't go out to get shot to death by Rick, but rather they would get eaten to death, which I've had happen before. So, sorry for that, I guess, but hey, let's be honest, Enid was definitely more memorable in this situation. And Owen would also be encountered by either Eastman, Morgan, Aaron, it doesn't matter. He would still come across them, but this would be a first time meeting, and he would get captured, but it's in a much different way because more people would see to his capture, him being the leader and everything, and yeah, it would be definitely much different him getting captured. And speaking of, what story will Morgan tell Owen this time? Because he's not going to tell him the story about him and Eastman. He's going to tell him a different story because of him being around for so dang long, since the original canon season 3 in Woodbury and such. And if he tells whatever story, will it make Owen change? Especially if he tells him about Woodbury and everything. And will more people agree with Morgan and everybody else? Will Owen's ultimate, survival mean more consciousness for the group? Or do you think that the wolves are just meant to be out of the picture? And that's where we leave things for the moment. Hope that you guys like this episode and are enjoying the Dale story so far, because 35 parts in and approaching the Saviors and everything, that's going to be the tipping point going into the Whisperers, and meaning that this series, slowly but surely, approaching the end game. But I hope you guys have enjoyed nonetheless and are enjoying everything else that I've been doing on here, and I will see you guys next time.